today I'm sitting with Doug Cortney. Doug, thanks for coming out and willing to sit in front of the camera and talk to me.
Yeah, great to talk with you, John. Let me, right up front, also thank Fizz, where we're having this. I really appreciate them.
Yeah, it's very nice of them to give us a location. It's a great location, a lot of fun and tasty. Yeah. So tell me about yourself, Doug. Where were you raised and how is it that you came to live here in Highland?
Well, I grew up in San Jose, California, a small suburb there. Very much like here, actually, except in the wintertime, a lot less snow.
Yeah.
I was active in the community, committee chairman of my local Boy Scout troop, taught Sunday school at the church that is still just a couple of blocks down from my parents' house, worked on the school board, member of the volunteer auxiliary of the police department, just active in the community. That's been sort of a long time interest of mine. But then about 15 years ago, I followed my job out to Utah, moved to Orem, and when 4 years ago, my husband and I were looking for a new place to call home, we fell in love with a house right up here, and it didn't take us too long to realize that we really lucked out when we picked our house because we got to live in Highland, and we were falling in love with Highland and all of our neighbors too.
Excellent. You're running for city council, and I've been recording these videos and putting them online for the last couple of years. Very frequently, it's me and you sitting there.
Yep, especially by the end of the meeting.
End of the meeting, it's 11 o'clock, it's the city council, it's meeting. You have been attending these things and now you want to do this. Why are you running for city council?
Partly, I started attending, one, because I was interested, but two, because I really enjoy municipal government. And so that's really part of why I'm running. The other part is I've been to the meetings, I've seen what's happening. We've got some real challenges coming down the road in Highland, and I think that I have the knowledge at this point from having spent the time and the effort to come up to speed on things, and the approach that really can help us solve those problems in the best way.
I love watching you over there because frequently at 11 o'clock at night on those city council meetings, I have the cameras and I'm not kind of asleep and looking at my phone. You're keeping notes. So it's like you're actually, what have you been keeping notes on? What do you see as some of the issues that will be addressing the residents in the next couple of years?
Partly, you don't know.
Okay.
Because things crop up. I mean, you look at George W. Bush's presidency, that very shortly into it, all of his plans went up in smoke, and what we thought were going to be the big issues totally changed.
Right.
And that can happen at any level of government. However, there are some things that we know are coming, and some things that we can reasonably anticipate. I think the three big ones are the general fund, which is another way of saying the budget, the open space fee, and really maintaining the character of Highland. And let me talk just a moment about each one of those three. The general fund, first of all. A few months ago, the city commissioned a study to look into the general fund and see kind of what it was looking like going out a couple of years. And the conclusions were just absolutely terrifying. That the conclusion of the study was that by the end of fiscal year 2022, which is just 3 years out basically, that the general fund is in the red, which means that not this coming year, not the next, but the following one out, that we have 7% less money than we need to pay our bills if nothing changes. That means expenses don't go up more than the kind of inflation that we're expecting. It doesn't. That's a really major problem because right now we're sitting on a pretty hefty reserve, which is a good thing. You have unexpected expenses come up. You need to have some money set aside to deal with them, or else you're going to have to borrow, you're going to have to bond, and that's going to be more expensive for the city. So building that reserve, the city council has been really responsible in doing things. And that's what makes it so scary, is that we've got 3 months of money sitting there in the bank right now, effectively.
Yeah.
And that means that over the next 3 years, we spend every penny of that plus 7% of our budget, which is about $500,000. We have to do something about that.
Right.
Anybody who tells you that this isn't a problem coming down the road, either they're misinformed, or they're lying, or they're in possession of a golden goose that they're going to donate to the city. I mean, those are really the only three options. Like I said, we don't know the future. It may be that it's not 3 years out, maybe that it's 3.5 years out or 4 years out.
Right.
It may be that it's 2.5 years out or 2 years out. I mean,
But it is the trend.
But it's coming.
Yeah.
And so we need to deal with that. I'll come back to that a little later, but let me talk about the other two issues. One, the open space fee. A lot of people don't realize that about 25% of the residents in Highland live in what are called open space neighborhoods. And they pay $20 every month for an open space fee that covers most of the cost of maintaining the parks and trails in their neighborhoods. Those parks and trails are used by everyone in the city. And those residents feel that they're paying too much for maintaining facilities that the entire city benefits from. And I think there's a lot of validity to that concern. It's really one of those things that is breaking the community apart into different pieces. That we're not Highland. Right. We're this little group in Highland, and we're that little group in Highland. And particularly with the general fund issue, we have to come together and be one city, or we're not going to be able to solve that. So I don't know what the solution is to the open space fee. I'm convinced that we need to find one, and I'm convinced I know what the path to getting to that solution is. It's bringing everybody together, both open space neighborhood residents and non-open space neighborhood residents, and having a real serious discussion about things, probably as part of that general fund discussion that we have coming in.
Right, yeah.
It doesn't make sense to separate them out since they're going to be happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And hash out, come up with some compromise. Compromise is kind of a dirty word in the United States these days. But
can be.
If you look at it, compromise is the reason we have a United States.
Yeah,
that's how we have to get along.
And in a small community, that's kind of a driving thing. There isn't always a right and wrong answer. It tends to be compromise. We have to come up and address a lot of priorities and find a way through it. A lot of interests, and we can do that locally.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about your family, that if you and your spouse never compromise, you probably don't have a family for too much longer.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And we're in the same spot with the city. It's not like the city is going to go away, but it's not going to be a city that we want to live in. So that brings me down to the third piece, which is making sure it's a city we want to live in going forward, maintaining the character of Highland. The catch is that sometimes there's a fine line between maintaining and stagnating.
That's true, yeah.
And we have to make sure that we're maintaining the core characteristics of Highland, but that we're flexible enough to adjust to things as they change.
So give me some examples of that.
Yeah, let me give you one example, which, now this has been on the general plan forever, so it's not really a change. But the development center property just south of the high school, that the city council approved 699 homes in that spot with the site plan. A lot of people are upset about that many homes, that high density right there. What I think most people don't understand is that the state's plan was to have 1,300 homes on that site.
Almost twice as many.
Yes. Now, 1,300 was probably never going to happen, but something much closer to that. And there was real concern that if Highland pushed back too much, that they'd simply go to American Fork. And I think everybody is confident that American Fork would have been good with any density the state wanted.
Right.
It would have been in the same place. It would have been right there on our border, just like it is now. So what the city did, they worked with the developer, and Boyer has done a really good job working with us to find something.
Boyer had a lot of meetings with the residents, changed their plans, addressed concerns.
Yep, and really came up with something that works for Highland. It's a nice neighborhood, it's inward facing. We have senior housing there, we have some commercial and retail along the outside. That is really going to be just a gem of a neighborhood once it's built up. And a key point is that it's not right in the middle of the city. It's right on our border.
Right, yeah.
So if there's some place where we're looking for higher density, that's really a good spot for it.
Right.
And like I said, we've had it planned as mixed use basically forever. But that's the sort of thing that we need to be willing to look at. That, it is a higher density than the rest of Highland. We can have that higher density if we're careful about how we do it, where we do it.
Right.
And
crossroads of Cedar Hills and American Fork, and so it blends in quite nicely there.
It really does maintain the core character of Highland.
Yes.
But it's still flexible enough that we didn't end up with something really bad.
Right.
We could easily have ended up with 1,100 homes on that property. It would have been in American Fork, but the traffic would have been the same. We would have had all the negatives. This way, we got to control it, and we got something that really works well for Highland.
Right.
I think that's the kind of approach we need to take.
Should someone take that and then conclude that for all new developments that you would be supportive of changing the zoning for?
No.
No.
No. A counterexample, actually, is there was a property just north of Walmart that the city council approved plans for, 2 months ago maybe. And initially there was a plan for 10 homes. The neighbors came, they spoke out against it. Then once the public hearing was over, the city and the developer had a discussion about it and it came to a compromise on 6 homes.
Right. Yeah.
Personally, I would actually have voted against that because I think the density was too high there. I think it's going to sound sort of silly. I think it should have been limited to 5. Some will look at that and say 5 versus 6, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. But the key thing is the road running through there and what it's rated for going forward. At 5 homes, there are 2 other properties immediately south of it that we expect to be developed as well. If we had allowed 5 homes on that piece of land, then the other 2 would have been able to put 5 homes on also. By putting 6 on there, if the other 2 both put even just 5 homes, we're over the capacity that we've anticipated for that road.
Okay.
I don't know how big of a problem it is to be over capacity by 1 house, but if you establish a capacity, it seems like that ought to be your limit.
Right.
When you come back afterward and say, well, but we really want more, you're probably just fooling yourself.
Right. Yeah. Right. So remain consistent with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, to me, it isn't a matter of always approve higher density or always refuse higher density. In government, like in so many other things, there is no one always right answer. There are some answers that are always wrong.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's a matter of weighing the costs and the benefits of each one of the reasonable answers and coming up with what's best in this particular case.
Right.
Sometimes, as with the Boyer property, higher density is the right answer. Mostly, in Highland particularly, mostly that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
That really was a fairly special case, but you have to weigh it every time.
So for this election cycle, there are 3 city council seats up for election. There's 11 candidates in the race. Tell me why Highland City residents should consider Doug Cortney for Highland City Council.
Sure. I'll say that really there are only 3 promises that I make. The first one is that I will almost certainly not remember your name the next time we meet.
We share that.
Yes, we bear that same burden through life then.
We do the outtake where I had to be reminded even though I've known you for 2 years. Yes.
Yeah, so if that's important to people, I'm not your candidate. Second thing is that you and I are not going to agree on everything. I'll tell you that right up front.
Yeah.
That the third thing is that I'm going to work harder for the city than any other candidate who is running. I will work to be sure that I have researched the issues and I have all the facts. I will work with the other residents to make sure that I understand their opinions. And I will be willing to explain what I think and why I think that on any issue.
Excellent.
Most importantly, and this is a really important one, if there's a candidate you're not sure about this next thing, don't vote for them.
No, that's,
and that's that I will keep an open mind. That if you disagree with me on an issue, you'll have an opportunity, an honest opportunity to change my mind. We've got big things coming down the road that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
We have to have people who will be frank about what they think and who keep an open mind and can really be convinced by a better argument.
Excellent. All right. Well, Doug, thank you so much for visiting. So if people want to know more information or get involved with your campaign, how do they do that?
Yeah. I mean, the 2 best ways are, one, just going to my website, which is electdougcourtney.com, and the other is to call me. My phone number is area code 801-380-9133. Anybody you want to talk to me, have them call me.
All right. Well, thanks, Doug. Appreciate your time. Good luck. Thanks.
Sure thing.